Welcome back to Birds of a Feather. This is your daily Baltimore sports podcast. My name is Nathan Stroud, and today we've got a lot to go over regarding the Orioles and the Ravens. This is definitely going to be one of the biggest episodes that we have recorded here recently, but the Orioles game just ended about 10 minutes ago, and it's been like 10 minutes and I still can't even really believe what I just watched. The Orioles just walked off the Dodgers for the second night in a row. The Orioles win this series no matter what happens tomorrow. The Orioles win this series over the Dodgers. They've taken 2 out of 3 games. Game 3 is tomorrow, obviously, but the Orioles walk off the Dodgers on 21-31 night, the 30th anniversary of the historic Cal Ripken Jr. 21-31, 2,131 games played in a row for Cal. One of the most historic nights in baseball history. 100% arguably one of the greatest accomplishments in Baltimore sports history, and really one of the biggest things that's ever happened in the MLB, and it's a record that a lot of people say is so untouchable and so unbreakable. And as Chris Berman said 30 years ago, Cal Ripken Jr. has reached the unreachable star, and this Orioles team really did feel like they reached an unreachable star tonight. What a damn win for this Orioles team, and you take everything that happened in this game. And for those of y'all who didn't tune in this game, didn't watch the game, it was an absolutely insane game in that bottom of the ninth inning. The Orioles... Obviously, today was a very big day for the Orioles franchise, 30th anniversary of 21-31. A bunch of Orioles legends came out. Eddie Murray, obviously Cal Ripken Jr. was there. Just so many people were there to represent the Orioles and to be there for such a big day. And they decorated the warehouse like they did all those years ago with 21-31. It was a huge day. And the Orioles in this game, for the first 8.2 innings of this game, with 1 out remaining in the ninth inning, the Orioles were getting walked off. The Orioles were getting no hit the entire game. Yoshinobu Yamamoto, who's one of the best pitchers in baseball, he had an amazing performance tonight. He went out there today and got through 8.2 innings, scoreless and hitless. He was throwing a no-hitter. I think he had like 112 pitches. He was throwing a no-hitter through 8.2 innings. The Orioles did not get a hit for 8.2 innings of this game. And I'm going to keep repeating it because it's just so insane. And bottom of the ninth inning, 2 outs. The Orioles are 1 out away from getting no hit. They would have been the first team all year to get no hit, and the Dodgers would have been the first team this year to have a no hitter, and it would have been a solo no hitter for Yoshinobu Yamamoto. And it was up to Jackson Holliday. He was the last batter remaining of the game. It was, I think, it was like a 1-1 count, and Jackson Holliday hit a home run to break the no hitter, to break the shutout, and to also break the no hitter at the same time. The Orioles at the time were down 3-0. So the Orioles were down 3-0 going into the bottom of the ninth inning. Dylan Beavers strikes out, and I think... What was it? It was Dylan Beavers struck out, and then who was batting ninth? No, it was Austin Jackson struck out, and then Kobe Mayo flied out, and then it was up to Jackson Holliday to break the no hitter. It was up to Jackson Holliday to save the no hitter and to break it up, and he was able to do that with a solo home run that barely got over the right field wall, or over the right center field wall. And Jackson Holliday was able to break the no-hitter. It was a cool moment. The Orioles had a cool celebration in the dugout where they because usually the Orioles home run celebration is like the Pirates of the Caribbean hat. They put the hat on, and that's kind of what they do, and obviously the hydration station. But what they did today was they put a Ravens helmet on Jackson Holliday, gave up a football, and he kind of like carried the football like a running back and kind of ran through the team. It was a really, really cool home run celebration. But at the time, the Orioles were still losing 3-1 with nobody on base. Jackson Holliday had a solo home run. So it was a really cool moment because he broke up the no-hitter, but the Orioles were still down by 2 runs with nobody on base with 2 outs. And Jeremiah Jackson was able to get a double, and then eventually the bases were loaded for Colton Cowser. Colton Cowser drew a walk. It was 3-2, bases loaded. Emmanuel Rivera came up to bat. They bring in Tanner Scott, and if you don't remember, Tanner Scott was the pitcher who gave up the walk-off home run to Samuel Basallo yesterday. And Tanner Scott, I think on his 3rd pitch of the game, Tanner Scott gave up a base hit to Emmanuel Rivera. and then Gunnar Henderson scored, and then and then Jorge Mateo ended up scoring as a pinch runner, and the Orioles walked off the Dodgers 4-3 in an absolutely insane win. Absolute pandemonium in Baltimore. You think about the fact that it was 21-31 day. 21-31 day. It was obviously a very emotional day for a lot of people in Baltimore. It was also obviously a very big. It was a very historic day for Baltimore. It was the 30th anniversary of. Probably the biggest accomplishment in Baltimore Orioles history and one of the most historical moments in team's history. And on that night, when the Orioles looked down and out completely, Jackson Holliday ended up breaking up the no-hitter, and then the Orioles were eventually able to walk it off, all with 1 out remaining. No room for error. Nobody gave up. Between all the guys in between Jackson Holliday and Emmanuel Rivera, they all played their part. There couldn't be a single flaw, error, out, or anything, because they were down to their final out of the game, and they were able to score 4 runs within that final out and walk off the Dodgers for back-to-back wins against them. They win the series over the Dodgers in an absolutely insane game. And we are going to go over the box score in just a second because there is some other stuff that I want to talk about. Samuel Basallo did have to leave this game today due to right hand discomfort, so hopefully that is not anything too serious with him, and hopefully he'll be back soon, and hopefully it's not anything too serious, because I think we did pull him just due to some precaution as well. But also Trevor Rogers got the start in this game, and he definitely had probably his worst start in a couple of months, but he still did have a solid start. I think he got through like 5.1 innings, gave up only 2 runs, but he did get worked in this game. I think he threw 94 pitches through 5.1 innings, so he did get pretty worked in this game, but he still overall had a good game. So we'll go over the Orioles box score in just 1 second, but also in this episode, and I was hoping that potentially there wasn't too much to talk about regarding the Orioles today, because we already were going to be having a long Ravens segment in this episode, kind of talking about the game tomorrow for the Ravens. Obviously tomorrow, we're less than 24 hours away now from the Ravens and Bills game. The season opener for the Ravens, the season opener for the Bills. Ravens in Buffalo, the revenge game, week 1. Obviously, the Bills sent the Ravens home in the playoffs last year in the divisional, and the Ravens are traveling back to Buffalo to open up the year. Sunday Night Football. It's going to be game of the week. It's the best matchup of the week by far, and we're going to be going over the game preview for that, going over some things to look out for and kind of setting the tone for the game tomorrow, because this is going to be the last episode before we talk about the game tomorrow. Because obviously in tomorrow's episode we're going to talk about, obviously the Ravens game is going to be the big thing, and then we're also going to talk about the Orioles game as well. But this Orioles game today was insane. We're going to go over the game preview, so let's just get into this Orioles game. And before we go too much more into the Orioles game for like the box score and everything, I do want to show you guys kind of the picture that kind of set the tone for the night for the Orioles. Obviously, for 8.2 innings of this game, it was absolutely embarrassing. They were literally 1 out away from getting no hit, and from 1 out away to getting no hit to eventually walking off the Dodgers within that same out. It is insane. It's one of the most miraculous wins, I think, of the season by any baseball team. And this is by far the best Orioles win of the season, by far the best Orioles moment, maybe in the past couple of years, because you kind of take into consideration just all of the emotions, all of the all of the legends that were there. I think Caitlin Clark was at this game with an Orioles hat on. I didn't know she was a Orioles fan or whatnot, but the crowd was there. The crowd was into it. They stayed the entire time. The Orioles almost got no. It's kind of like the Orioles were playing with us a little bit. They were getting no hit for 8.2 innings. They kind of kept the crowd at the game to see if the no hitter was going to happen, and then the Orioles ended up walking it off in the bottom of the 9th inning with 1 out to spare. And they did it. It was such a miraculous win. I was absolutely stunned when I saw it. I still am stunned just even talking about it and thinking back to that moment just like 15 minutes ago, because it was absolutely bananas. It was crazy. But the picture that I'm showing on my screen for the people here watching on YouTube is a picture of Cal Ripken Jr. on the red car driving across the warning track, just like he did 30 years ago after he had the 21-31 game and the 21-31 moment. He kind of did this at the beginning of the game, got to say hi to everybody, got to slowly drive around the warning track, say hi to everybody around the field, shook the hands of all of the Orioles players that were sitting in the dugout, and obviously you can see in the back here, you can see the 21-31 sign up on the warehouse, so decorated the warehouse for this very big moment, very big game. Lots of Orioles fans came out, and the way that they ended it tonight is really something out of a movie. Like, this is something out of a movie. This was the movie moment for the Orioles. And also, you think back to yesterday's game as well, where they walked off the Dodgers on Tanner Scott again. So the Dodgers have gotten walked off back-to-back nights, and it was Tanner Scott giving up, well, I guess Tanner Scott didn't technically give up the runs today, but he gave up the hit to ended up getting the loss. But back-to-back walk-offs off of Tanner Scott, back-to-back walk-offs against the Dodgers. Again, these are the defending champions, guys. This is the defending champions of Major League Baseball. This is the team that everybody thinks has the best team, the most talented team. Obviously, they spent a bunch of money on Shohei Ohtani, a bunch of money on Yamamoto, Blake Snell, all these guys. And the Dodgers are an incredible team, but that's what makes this even more of a special moment, is because how good the Dodgers are and the fact that they were able to do it and have this moment. And obviously, you think back to all season long, all of the terrible stuff that's happened with the Orioles. You think about all the injuries, all of the injuries that this team had from pitching and from hitting wise, all of the offensive struggles that this team had, the runners in scoring position struggles, the major starting pitching struggles, and we just couldn't get enough good innings out of our starting pitchers. And it was really hard to find good innings, and we just couldn't just have a normal game most of the time. And this Orioles team has gone through so much stuff, mentally and just physically, obviously, with the injuries, and it was just it's been a really rough season for the Orioles, and the fans know it, the team knows it, the ownership knows it. And, the world knows it, because the world knows that this Orioles team had expectations to be one of the best teams in baseball, and they, very much under-delivered on that expectation. But obviously there has been a lot of positives to happen here recently. You think about Dylan Beavers, you think about Basayo, you think about Jeremiah Jackson, you think about Trevor Rogers, Kyle Bradish coming back, Tyler Wells coming back. Like, there's been a lot of positives here over the past few weeks with this Orioles team. Also the, growth of Jackson Holiday, the growth of, Gunnar Henderson keep doing his thing. So, this team has gone through a lot, and for them to have these back-to-back nights, these back-to-back historical moments, and just incredible walk-offs for the fans, they deserve it. The players deserve it, and everybody really just deserves to be happy with this team right now, because this Orioles team has won 5 straight games. They swept the Padres, and now they've taken 2 out of 3 already from the Dodgers. So the fans deserve to be happy. The city deserves to be happy. The players deserve to be happy. And it doesn't make me emotional in a way, but it really is it really is cool to see, because it kind of just felt like for a lot of the season that everything that can go wrong will go wrong with this Orioles team. And even when you think back to earlier in the game, obviously Basayo hits the walk-off home run yesterday, and then today he leaves the game with left hand discomfort, or right hand discomfort, because he was catching, and he was got the discomfort while he was catching. And one good thing happens, and then 10 bad things happen. That's just kind of how it felt this year. But to have these moments, man, it really is special. It really is magical. And tonight is really going to be a night, I think, that a lot of Orioles fans, including myself, are really going to remember for a long time. And I'm just so glad I was able to watch it live on TV. And for the people that are there in person, I hope they really do cherish this moment as well. But going over this Orioles and Dodgers game, one quick thing that I do want to show you guys is if you go to ESPN, which is where we do all of our box score stuff. So if you go to ESPN, there's a win probability tab, which throughout the game, ESPN kind of calculates what the win probability is for the team. So obviously, for majority of the game, the Dodgers were leading throughout the entirety of this game. They were leading, 50% early on, obviously, because they were the favorites, and then it just kept going up and up and up over to overtime, because obviously the Orioles were getting no hit, they weren't getting on base, and the Dodgers had an early, not an early 3-0 lead, but they had an early lead in this game that they were able to hold for 8.2 of the 9 innings. And that's why every single out matters, ladies and gentlemen. This is a perfect example that every single out in baseball matters, and you always fight to the hardest because you never know what's going to happen. But going through this game, obviously the Dodgers were expected to win for literally the entire game. But if you go right here to this moment right here, bottom of the 9th, when Mayo flied out to center. This is when after Kobe Mayo flied out to center field, this is when Jackson Holiday came up. It was 3-0. The Orioles were 1 out away from getting no hit, and the Dodgers were 1 out away from having a no-hitter and also getting a shutout win. So at this point, bottom of the 9th inning, after Mayo flied out to center, the Dodgers, according to ESPN, had a 99.6% chance of winning this game. They gave the Orioles a 0.4% chance of winning this game, and then eventually that dropped down to 98.4 after the home run. Even after the home run by Jackson Holliday, even after the no-hitter was broken up, and even after the shutout was broken up, when the Dodgers were up 3-1 with nobody on base with 2 outs, the Dodgers' win percentage was still at 98.4, and then you move down here again to 93.8 after Jeremiah Jackson doubled, then the 89.1 after Henderson got hit by a pitch, then 82.6 after Mountcastle walked, then 73.3% after Colton Cowser got walked with the bases loaded, and then it went from 73.3% to 100% for the Baltimore Orioles. It went from 73.3% chance Dodgers win, immediately next batter to an 100% Orioles win after they walked him off. There's sometimes in sports where those types of screenshots with like the percentage wise of ESPN is a banger online. You can put that out online and it gets a ton of impressions and stuff like that. So it's just one of those moments, man. It really is one of those magical moments in sports, and this is why we love sports. Like, this is why sports are so amazing for nights like this. And I'm not even saying that just because it's the Orioles, and obviously this is a show about the Orioles and I'm a fan of the Orioles, but just in general, like, this is what these historical moments in baseball really mean. And that's why every single out matters so much. And this is one of the craziest endings to a game all year long. And again, we've been recording now for 16 and a half minutes, and I haven't even gone over the box score. So prepare for a pretty long episode today, because we are going to be going over the Ravens game preview. But going over this box score real quick, there really isn't a ton to go over regarding the box score, because there wasn't a ton of stuff that really happened for a majority of the game for the Orioles. The Orioles only ended up getting 3 hits in this entire game. Obviously, they didn't get their first hit until the bottom of the 9th inning with 1 out, or 2 outs. They were 1 out away, as I've said again. But the Orioles only ended up going 1 for 3 with runners in scoring position, and that 1 hit ended up being the walk-off win. But Jackson Holliday in this game went 1 for 4, obviously the solo home run to break up the no-hitter. Jeremiah Jackson went 1 for 4, he had the double, and then Emmanuel Rivera had the walk-off win, the walk-off 2 RBI win. So those were the only 3 hits for the Orioles. Everybody else went hitless. Again, Samuel Basallo had 1 at-bat in this game. He got walked, and then he had to get taken out. So in general, this game was just absolutely insane. Going over to the pitchers, as we said earlier, Trevor Rogers got through 5.1 innings, gave up 8 hits, 1 walk, 2 runs, had 6 strikeouts in 96 pitches. His ERA went from a 1.39 to a 1.51. So his ERA did go up a little bit, but a 1.51 ERA across 15 starts is still absolutely insane. As long as Trevor Rogers doesn't give up like 7 runs over the next 3 starts, his ERA is still going to be looking pretty good all year. I expect hopefully for it to be at least below a 2. But Trevor Rogers in his 15th start of the year, 5 innings or 5.1 innings, 2 runs, 6 strikeouts. Not horrible. Was still able to get through 5.1 innings, but he did get worked in this game a lot. He really did all that he could. So shout out to Trevor Rogers for limiting the damage as much as he could. He was on the verge of getting the loss in this game, but again, the Orioles were able to walk it off, which is still just so insane. Sean Dubin came in, 0.2 innings, didn't give up a hit, run, walk, whatever. And then Albert Suarez actually ended up getting the win in this game. Albert Suarez got through 3 innings out of the bullpen, gave up 2 hits, 1 run, 1 walk, and had a strikeout. And at the time, it kind of looks like the Dodgers, again, were going to run away with it, and then the Orioles just ended up having such a miraculous win. By far the best Orioles win of the season. I said that yesterday, but today I'm going to say the exact same thing 10 times over, because just what a win for the Orioles. And in the month of September, the Orioles are actually 5-0 in the month of September, and the Dodgers are 0-5. And the Orioles have also won 5 in a row now. Obviously, the sweep against the Padres and taking the first 2 games against the Dodgers. And they have a chance to sweep the Dodgers. I really never thought I'd say that this year, just based on what's happened this year with the Orioles. But the Orioles have a chance to sweep the Dodgers in tomorrow's game. Tomorrow's game obviously is at 12:35. Going to be in the middle of when football games start coming on at noon. Obviously, the Ravens don't play until 7:20 p.m. because it is a primetime game. It is Sunday Night Football. But tomorrow it's going to be Clayton Kershaw versus Sagano. It's going to be a battle of the old heads. Sagano's obviously a 35-year-old rookie. Clayton Kershaw just hit 3,000 strikeouts this year, one of the greatest pitchers of all time. So it's going to be a very fun matchup. We'll see what ends up happening. Obviously, these games have been pretty low scoring over the past 2 days, so maybe this game will be an absolute shootout. Who knows? But we're in for a pretty fun game tomorrow, and hopefully the Orioles can get a sweep. Switching things up and talking about the big game tomorrow, switching things up to football and obviously talking about the game tomorrow. And the game that I'm referring to is the game that we've been waiting for ever since they released the schedule a couple of months ago. Ever since we knew that we were going to be playing the Bills in Buffalo on our schedule. It's kind of like Christmas Eve in a way, you know. Football and obviously football games are so rare and it's so exclusive. You know, you only get to watch your team minimum play 17 games a year. And obviously when you watch football or when you watch like basketball and baseball and stuff like that, you get to watch your team play a lot. In basketball, you get to watch them play 82 games a year. And then in baseball, obviously you get the chance to watch them 162 games in a year. So with football, obviously it's once a week, plus the bye week and everything like that. And, you know, every single game is so special and means so much down the line. And tomorrow is one of those games where, you know, it's the start of the season for the Ravens. Obviously, the Chiefs and Chargers started their season yesterday. The Eagles and Cowboys started the season on Thursday. And then a lot of teams are going to be starting their season tomorrow at noon, tomorrow at 3. But tomorrow night, Sunday Night Football in Buffalo, Ravens-Bills primetime game. The Ravens obviously last season played the Bills twice, once in the regular season, once in the divisional round of the playoffs. In the regular season, the Ravens absolutely whooped the Bills' ass, absolutely killed them. I think it was like a 35-10 win. Derrick Henry obviously ran all over them. It was kind of like the real, like, you know, coming out game for Derrick Henry in terms of a Raven. And then in the playoffs, it was a very, you know, tough, physical, hard-nosed battle, and the Ravens ended up losing in the playoffs to the Bills. The Bills sent the Ravens home in Buffalo on a 27-25 win for the Bills. And if you remember, the Ravens lost last year due to a multitude of different mistakes. You know, Lamar Jackson had a very costly fumble that Von Miller picked up and brought back like 30 to 40 yards. Lamar Jackson threw an interception on a miscommunication by the receiver. And Mark Andrews also had a fumble in the fourth quarter. And Mark Andrews also had a 2-point conversion drop that would have tied the game with about 1 minute and 30 seconds left in the fourth quarter. So the Ravens had their opportunities to beat the Bills last season. The Ravens defense did not force any turnovers from the Bills. And the Ravens turned the ball over 3 times themselves, and they still only lost by 2 points. In the final drive of the game, Lamar Jackson didn't have Rashad Bateman or Zay Flowers on the field. He was working with Anthony Miller, Tylan Wallace, and his tight ends, and Lamar Jackson. And I still will say this to this day, the final drive of the game, the final drive, not the 2-point conversion, not anything else that happened in the game prior, but I think that the drive that Lamar Jackson had in the fourth quarter on the final drive of the game for the Ravens, Lamar Jackson with no receiving help, with no wide receivers really on his team at that time because Bateman got hurt earlier in the game and Zay Flowers was ruled out for the game. Lamar Jackson went down the field, 93 yards down the field, scored a touchdown, and was a 2-point conversion away from tying the game. And if the game was tied, the Bills would have had 1 minute and 30 seconds left to possibly score and win the game. But obviously we'll never know what would have happened in that scenario because Mark Andrews dropped the ball. On the 2-point conversion, Lamar Jackson placed it right in his hands. Mark Andrews bobbled it, dropped it, and the game was over. One of the most disgusting losses I've ever seen as a football fan. One of the most heartbreaking losses I've seen as a football fan because obviously you look back to last year's Ravens team and you really thought that this was it, that this was the year that they were going to be able to do it, and they didn't do it. And they fell short once again. The Lamar Jackson playoff reputation continues to carry even now. But this Ravens team this Ravens team has a chance to really rewrite a lot of the narratives that are against Lamar Jackson and against this Ravens team, that they can't get it done in the big moments. In my opinion, I think on paper this is the best Ravens team that Lamar Jackson has ever had. And I also think on paper that this Ravens team has the potential to potentially be the greatest Ravens team of all time if they can go out there and get the job done. And we'll see what they do throughout the season. Obviously, it starts tomorrow, but I think that this Ravens team has the ability to be historic. We've seen an historic Ravens team last year. We saw an historic Ravens offense last year, and we saw a historic Ravens defense 2 years ago. So we've seen all the historical things. We know what Lamar Jackson's capable of. We know what he can do. We've seen all the numbers. We've seen all the stats. We've seen all the awards. And as Ray Lewis said throughout training camp this year in his huddle, and just as what a lot of players have said as well, the team understands the amount of pressure that they're on. The team understands the expectations that they have to go out and perform and win. And not only win regular season games, but to potentially win it all. They understand the pressure that they're under. And none of the stuff matters. None of the on-paper stuff matters unless they go out there and actually perform and execute and win those games. So obviously that's all that matters. I think throughout the training camp, throughout the media press conferences, throughout the interviews and stuff like that, it kind of does feel like this Ravens team has a different mindset going into this season than they did last year. And for the past 2 years now, the Ravens have actually gone into a season with their first game being against the opponent that they just lost to in the playoffs. Obviously, you look back at last season, the Ravens' opening game last season was on the Thursday Night Football opening game of the year in general. It was the kickoff game of the season. Obviously, this year's game was Cowboys at Eagles, because the Eagles just won the Super Bowl. Last season, it was the Ravens in Kansas City. And obviously, Kansas City won the Super Bowl last season, or 2 years ago, Kansas City won the Super Bowl. And the Ravens lost to them in the AFC Championship game in Baltimore. Heartbreaking loss. I was there in person. Gut-wrenching loss. And then the NFL scheduled the Ravens to play the Chiefs Week 1 in Kansas City for their first game of the year. Obviously, it was a very big revenge game. You just lost to them in the AFC Championship game. And the Isaiah Likely toe incident happened, where Isaiah Likely's toe was barely out of bounds, and the game-winning or the game-tying potential touchdown was erased, and the Chiefs ended up winning. And obviously the Ravens ended up getting back into the year, made the postseason, did all that stuff. But this is now the second year in a row where the Ravens are actually going to be playing the team that they just lost to in the playoffs. Obviously last season, we lost to the Bills in the divisional round, and now we're playing the Bills in Buffalo, the same place we lost in the divisional. We lost to Buffalo. We lost to the Bills in Buffalo last season in the playoffs. It was very cold. The conditions were horrible. The conditions for tomorrow's game are going to be a lot better. It's going to be like 58 degrees, cloudy, not any snow, not any stuff like that. A normal, cool day in Buffalo, New York. And the Ravens are going to be in Buffalo with a chance for revenge, with a serious chance for revenge. And I think everybody on planet Earth understands that the Ravens on paper are a way better team than the Buffalo Bills. The Bills' offense necessarily doesn't have the greatest weapons in the world, and their defense also doesn't have the greatest players in the world either. But the Bills find a way to get it done because they are a great team. They're coached very well, and Josh Allen does an amazing job leading those guys. I'm not taking anything away from Josh Allen. I think Josh Allen is an amazing quarterback. The Bills fans and Josh Allen have said the exact same thing about Lamar Jackson. They respect him as well. So this is two fan bases that really do respect the quarterbacks that they have, because at the end of the day, guys, these are the two best quarterbacks in the NFL going at it tomorrow. The Bills and the Ravens, Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson are the two best quarterbacks in the NFL. Obviously, they were top two in MVP voting last season for a very good reason. It was the closest MVP race in like 10 years. Obviously, Josh Allen barely outbeat Lamar in that category. We're not going to go over who should have won because it's a new season. I'm not worried about that. Everyone has their own opinion. It's a very split thing. But kind of just talking about this Ravens game in general, and kind of talking about how much this Ravens game kind of means to open up the year, and what a win would do for this Ravens team. It would do a lot. If the Ravens go into Buffalo tomorrow, after they just lost to them in the playoffs, the season opener in Buffalo, on the road, the Ravens are favorited by 1.5 points, but for the Ravens to go on the road in Buffalo and for them to go out there and potentially get a win would be obviously the best start of the season that they could possibly have. I think the Bills are the toughest opponent that the Ravens face all year, and if the Ravens can get the Bills out of the way and get a win early, that would be incredible. That would be absolutely incredible. And the same thing with the Bills. We're the toughest opponent that the Bills are going to face all year. So both teams obviously want to come out with the win. The Ravens can start the season off 1-0. If you remember back to last season, the Ravens actually started off the year 0-2 last year. They lost to the Chiefs in Week 1 and the Raiders in Week 2, and then they had to crawl their way back up, but they were able to very quickly with a win over the win over the Cowboys, the Bills, the Bengals, the Commanders. They were able to get back into the season very easily. It's always good to start, it's always good to I'm not sitting here saying that like this Orioles team, or not this Orioles team, oh my god. I'm not sitting here saying that the Ravens should start good and then like end bad. I'm saying that this Ravens team all season long needs to have their foot on the gas pedal. This team knows what they need to do. This team knows what's ahead. They want a Super Bowl so bad. Derrick Henry's talked about it. Mark Andrews has talked about it. Zay Flowers has talked about it. DeAndre Hopkins has talked about it. Guys on defense have talked about it. Roquan, Kyle, all these guys have talked about it. And especially Lamar Jackson has talked about it, where he understands that his legacy is not necessarily on the line this season, but for Lamar to get a Super Bowl this year would mean so much to him. For the Ravens to win a Super Bowl would mean so much to this team. And going into this season, the Ravens understand what they need to do. This is a big first game, obviously, against Buffalo. This is going to be the matchup of the week. This is going to be the hardest team we're going to face all season. The Ravens have some very tough opponents on their schedule, like the Chiefs and the Lions, and obviously, the divisional opponents and all that stuff. But the Ravens and the Bills, this is the game, man. This is the game. There's a reason why it's on Sunday Night Football. It's the top two runner-ups in the MVP voting last year facing off against each other in Week 1. And also, these were the two guys that played each other in the playoff matchup last year that sent the Ravens home. So there's a very big chip on the shoulder of Lamar Jackson, and there's a very big chip on the shoulder of Mark Andrews. As we know, Isaiah Likely is not going to be playing tomorrow for the Ravens, so Mark Andrews is going to be that prime tight end for Lamar Jackson tomorrow, just like he's been throughout his entire career. Mark Andrews and Lamar Jackson obviously have that connection. He's been the only tight end that's been there for Lamar throughout his entire career. So I expect and I hope that Mark Andrews can have a very big bounce-back game from what happened in the playoffs. Obviously, him going out here and having a really good day does not necessarily avenge that loss, because that loss was a playoff loss last year, which means more than anything. And this is just a Week 1 matchup, but it still is going to be important for him, and I think in his mind, to go out there and have a good game against this team. I'm sure he's thought about that drop and that fumble so much this offseason. He got a lot of death threats from a lot of people. There's a lot of sickos out there who really said a lot of horrible things about Mark Andrews and his family, and he's dealt with that all offseason. He dealt with it very well. Obviously, Mark Andrews is one of the most hardworking people that I really know in sports. He deals with a lot of stuff outside of football that he has to work with the whole diabetes situation. He's able to work through it good, and he's a very respectable, very great guy. And I really just hope that he has a big day tomorrow and really can have a revenge game against Buffalo, because I think if Mark Andrews can go out there tomorrow and play great against Buffalo, in a way, I think it's going to really boost his confidence for the rest of the season, kind of knowing that he got that bad taste out of his mouth a little bit and moving forward with the season. But if you go up here to the matchup predictor, the Ravens are 1.5-point favorites. But if you go to the matchup predictor, which, ESPN matchup predictors are not necessarily anything crazy that you need to be looking at. But even ESPN knows this is a very, very close game. It's actually dead even. 49.8, 49.8, giving both teams the exact same amount of, pretty much a 50-50 game. And that's what it's going to be. Can the Ravens go in Buffalo and get the job done? It's going to be a very fun game to watch. Obviously, you have the new additions with Jair Alexander and DeAndre Hopkins, and the rookies in Malachi Starks and Mike Green making their debuts tomorrow for the Ravens. And I really hope that one of them, or a few of them, or all of them, can go make an immediate impact in this game. Lamar Jackson's obviously going to have himself to do his stuff with, and then he's obviously going to have Derrick Henry. He's going to have Justice Hill. He's going to have Keaton Mitchell out there. He's going to have Zay Flowers and Rashad Bateman and DeAndre Hopkins and Devontae Walker and Tylan Wallace to throw to. He's going to have Mark Andrews to throw to. He's going to have Charlie Kolar to throw to. He's going to have his O-line there ready to go. Everything is good to go. The Ravens' two biggest injuries going into this game is Pat Ricard and Isaiah Likely, which sucks, but this Ravens team, there's no excuse for the Ravens to not beat the Bills tomorrow. The Ravens should be able to do it. Not having those guys is not a thing that's going to make or break this game. But if you go over to the Bills injury report, they are not going to have Tre'Davious White. They're not going to have their kicker in Tyler Bass. Dwayne Carter's out for the season. Wayne Owens is out for the season. So the Bills are also dealing with some pretty big injuries as well. They literally don't have their kicker. They have to pick up Matt Prater, who's like 40 years old. So we'll see what he's able to do. We'll see what he's able to do tomorrow for the Bills. But this is a very interesting game. I mean, my heart's beating for this game. This is one of those games where you just kind of can't wait. You know how Carrie Underwood, says waiting all day for Sunday night? Like, that is kind of what I'm thinking right now going into this game. I cannot wait for the game tomorrow. Obviously, we have a ton of football games to kind of hold us over until then, which is going to be a lot of fun to watch, obviously, for fantasy implications if you're in your fantasy leagues and stuff. It's going to be a fun day tomorrow, but Ravens-Bills tomorrow night, it's going to be a ton of fun. Obviously, in tomorrow's episode, we're going to be going over the game in full, talking about the game, giving our first initial reactions to the game, and then also talking about the Orioles game tomorrow as well. But it's going to be a lot of fun tomorrow, and yeah. But thank you guys so much for tuning into and listening to this episode of Birds of a Feather. If you like this content, make sure to subscribe on YouTube, follow up on Spotify, and also make sure to click the link in the bio to follow these socials as well. The Instagram, the Twitter. It's very fun over there. Make sure to give those a follow. And there's going to be a lot of cool things coming up soon here over the next couple of weeks. Getting some things finalized for you guys. But the design, the production of the show is going to be getting a lot better, a lot more cool, and a lot more better for y'all. So for all of the people who've stuck with me throughout this entire time, I really do appreciate y'all. Obviously, today's episode is crazy. We went over the Ravens game preview. We went over kind of the expectations for the season. We went over the expectations for the game, kind of got hyped and ready to go for the game tomorrow. And then also we talked about the most insane Orioles win of the season today. From getting no hit in the bottom of the ninth inning with 1 out left, Jackson Holliday obviously breaking the no-hitter, and then the Orioles ended up walking off the Dodgers. They never quit. There's no quit in this team. It really was a beautiful night for the Orioles. And then obviously the Ravens game is going to be tomorrow, so a lot of stuff regarding Baltimore sports happening right now. We're at that time of the year where things are about to start getting really crazy for the rest of the month, obviously with football back tomorrow and with the Orioles still playing baseball. So things are getting crazy. Thank you guys for sticking with me. I'll see you guys tomorrow. You have a great Steelers day. Go O's. Go Ravens. And I'll see y'all later. Peace out.